Hey guys, Mr. King here, and today I'm with Dr. Frederic Gilbert, and he is a professor in the Department of Philosophy.
Just a research fellow.
Research fellow, there we go. And thank you for
Pleasure.
talking with my students.
Hi guys.
And the first question is, what is neuroethics?
Well, neuroethics is the discipline that asks questions about the impact of the development of neuroscience and, for instance, brain-computer interfaces. So we try to investigate and explore how, for instance, a brain implant will have an effect on patient autonomy, quality of life. So we often think about ethics in terms of safety and efficacy, but also we need to investigate the impact of these devices on society, for instance. Because when we have engineering developing this fantastic implant, they don't necessarily think about the consequences in the long term and what it will become for society in 10 years time, 20 years time, for instance. So we, as neuroethicists, we try to explore these questions.
Okay. Neuroethics is a relatively new field of studies. Why?
So yes, it is relatively new in the sense that it is intrinsically linked with the development of cutting-edge technologies. So when we think about brain-computer interfaces, we discover that there is issues that were not captured when the technology was developed. So neuroethics help, and it is new in the sense that it go along with the development of the technologies. It is in that respect that it is new, but question regarding what it means for a human or a patient to get a device in their brain, I've been around for quite some time. Back in the 60s, when we first tried to test that in human, we were already asking this question. So it is in that respect that it is a new field of research, and an important field of research.
Okay. These experimental scientists that are working in this field, they are trying to solve problems, solutions for some physical ailment. But it's a lot more complex than that. Can you give an example of how complex these issues are?
Yeah, thanks. For instance, we have many patients that we can access, and I will use an example. So a lady that had Parkinson for 15 years get a brain device, and her symptoms are gone. But suddenly something sort of special happened to her. She somehow do not recognize herself anymore. She tells us that yes, it's me now, but it's not the me that I was before the intervention. In a sense that she can't cope with the fact that she's symptom free. Her personality seems to be changed, her identity seems to be affected, and these consequences were not anticipated when the engineer, when the scientists were developing the technologies. It's only when we put it in human that we realize, oh, here's something funny happening, so we should ask the neuroethicists to look more carefully about what is happening there. And so our work then helps to generate policy, guideline to help patient and guide patient through the intervention, for instance. And it doesn't mean that the technology is not safe, but simply that we have to be careful when we develop and test the technology in human. And I'm sure that technology such as brain-computer interface has a great future ahead, and it is an important technology to look after.
One follow-up question. You used the word the effects on society.
Yes.
Can you explain a little more about that?
Yeah, so for instance, imagine that with a brain device you have a sort of special or superpower, so you become smarter than the other one. So what it means for you as an individual to be smarter than your friend, than your cousin. So is it fair? Is it fair for the society? Is a question of justice? Why you and not the other? And who can have access to these technologies? Because it is costly. Can it be that only people with money and those who are rich that can access the technology? That would be really fair. So these questions are again not within the technology itself. It's not the engineer that developed the implant that has to think about the social consequence, but they have to carefully articulate their research and the direction of their research to be sure that it will not bring injustice, unfairness within society.
Okay. And another follow-up
Please.
question. You're talking about in the future where your people can make themselves better, but on the technology right now, the question of the family being affected, and then who controls these implants?
Yeah. So we mean who control the implant, but so if it's still the, well, okay, maybe you will tell me if I didn't understand you properly. So does it mean that, for instance, if we think about artificial intelligence, right, within the bare computer interfaces, so we have a algorithm, for instance, that can control your symptom, but if it is, for instance, hacked, okay, a hacker get into your brain device, for instance, can they control actually the brain device? Therefore, can they control you? That's a concern. Actually, we have to think carefully about it. Is it what you meant by?
Well, I meant should the person who implanted this device, the doctor,
Yeah.
normally be in control, or the patient themselves?
Okay, yeah, that's also a very interesting question. So, yeah, currently, clinicians are in control of the device, and in sometimes patient can access and change, depending on the technology that they have in their brain. But that raises question about addiction, for instance. So, if you are, a classic example is that if your grandfather die, right, and you have a device that treats your depression, and you're going to see your grandmother, everybody is sad, but suddenly you have your device that tell you, oh, you're too sad, we have to boost you because it's not normal. But you would see that being in control of the device would be important in that case, telling you that, well, yeah, it's normal, I have to be sad because my grandfather just passed away. So it's not clear yet who should be in control and in which context, but it seems to be the case that we cannot always leave the patient to be in control, same as the clinician.
Okay. Thank you much,
My pleasure.
Dr. Frederic Gilbert.
My